This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Flag Day. I'm pleased to welcome everyone to today's Governance Committee, Finance Committee, and regular meeting of Hudson River Black River Regulating District here at our Sacandaga Field office in Mayfield, and to those board members and members of the public participating as well. The agendas are available at hrbrrd.ny.gov under board meetings. We ask that you please close other programs on your computer or phones, silence your cell phone, and mute your audio when not speaking. The conference organizer will monitor today's chat function for public comment. Comments may also be emailed to hrao@hrbrrd.ny.gov. Before I turn things over to the Governance Committee Chairman Candido, in honor of Flag Day, I'd like the board and members of the public to join me outside for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Really? Yeah, then we ended up playing the trees. It is tough.
We got everybody here?
They're coming.
They're coming? They'll have Mr. Reagan. Let's walk into his car. And I would forge ahead.
Okay, I'd now like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Candido with the Governance Committee.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to convene the Governance Committee meeting. I think, do we need roll call?
We do. Committee member Kenneth DeWitt.
Here.
Albert Hayes.
Here.
Nicole Allen. Board Chair Mark Finkel.
Here.
Board member Timothy Reagan is in the building. He's approaching. Executive Director John Callahan. who is also in the building approaching. General Counsel Robert Leslie Me, Chief Fiscal Officer Timothy Mitchell. Here. Sorry, Tim. Here. Chief Engineer Robert Fulton. Here. And Compliance Officer Stephanie Rizicki. Here. On video feed, Acting Committee Chair Alfred Candido.
Here.
And Board Member Richard Byrd. Mr. Byrd appears not to be in yet.
There he is.
Oh, he's on the phone.
I'm here by
Great.
phone.
All are present and accounted for.
Thank you, Mr. Leslie. Motion, first order of business, motion to accept minutes from the March meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. DeWitt? Mr. Hayes?
I will second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Okay.
All opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Passed.
It was just
We'll
delayed aye.
We'll need a motion to amend today's agenda. There have been 2 additions made to the agenda as posted. So I need a motion to adjourn, please. To amend.
I will make that motion.
Mr. Hayes?
Second.
I'll second that.
Mr. DeWitt?
All in favor?
We have a
Aye.
motion and second?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried. First order on the agenda, we have 2 resolutions that involve our insurance, purchasing and proposals. So I'd like Mr. Manisha to please explain and give his report on those resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We seek the board's approval to take 2 actions today. The first involves continuing a relationship for an additional year with Arthur J. Gallagher that has existed for many years with respect to the Regulating District Insurance Program. The second involves reviewing and authorizing payment for insurance coverage that takes effect on July 1, 2022. With respect to the first resolution, combination of operations between Cool Insuring and Arthur J. Gallagher that took place a year ago has resulted in a seamless transition and continued excellent service when it comes to putting this insurance proposal together, submitting claims that occasionally arise, and taking other steps that protect the regulating district in an increasingly risky world. As such, we seek approval from the board to formalize this arrangement by approving this resolution. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this first resolution.
Are there any questions of Mr. Manisha? There being none, I'll accept the motion to accept this resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. DeWitt?
We need a
I will
second.
second that.
Mr. Hayes?
Good. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Their resolution is carried. Mr. Manisha, I believe there's a second resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You may recall that Gallagher has faced a number of challenges in putting together an insurance program for the regulating district for these last couple of years. I'm happy to report that the magnitude of those obstacles is not as substantial as they were a couple years ago after a dam failure occurred in Michigan. The vast majority of the coverage is quite similar to what the regulating district has obtained in prior years. The most noteworthy item is the exit from auto coverage by the regulating district's previous carrier. This has resulted in a $6,000 increase in premium charged by a new carrier. A number of other potential carriers declined to offer coverage at all. The increased cost for the auto insurance represents nearly half of the total increase for the upcoming year. In asking the board to approve this resolution, I can also note that when calculated over the course of the current and upcoming year, the cost of the regulating district's insurance package is less than the amount allocated by the board for insurance in the budget it adopted in June of last year. I can also mention that the increase from 2 years ago is roughly $1,000 or 0.5% over the course of those 2 years. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you may have on this resolution.
Just a question, bundling is much cheaper than trying to go and get two separate policies, one for insurance on the automobile, or on the automobiles and stuff, and then.
Yes, we had in prior year, we had a single carrier provide the auto and the property.
Yeah.
And, but when they dropped out of the auto portion, we were left with only trying to get, you know, a single provider, and that's largely responsible for the increase.
If no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept the resolution and approve the purchase of the insurance.
I make that motion.
Mr. Hayes?
I'll second.
Mr. DeWitt?
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Manisha. Moving on to the two additional items that have been added to the agenda. They both involve extensions to operating agreements at two different locations. I'll ask Mr. Leslie to please present and explain these resolutions.
The first resolution, which is the third resolution the committee is looking at today, would approve a third amendment to the Reservoir operating agreement at Conklinville. That agreement is with Erie Boulevard Hydropower, LP. It was set to expire June 30th of 2022. This amendment would extend that agreement through December 31st of 2022, a 6-month extension, providing the parties additional time required for Erie to complete their analysis of the regulating district's appraisal created by Walden/NewGen, for Erie to complete their own appraisal, and for the parties to negotiate a new agreement. We're hopeful that in that 6-month period we can accomplish that.
Counselor, can I just add that these appear in the back of the very end of your board packet?
They are in the last few pages of the board packet. These things came about, both of these amendments came about the day we mailed out the board packet and posted it to or day we emailed the board packet and posted it to the website. But we were able to complete the resolution and the draft agreement in time to include it in the board packet that was mailed to you. And those board packets are here for you today.
The appraisal is due back on when?
Our appraisal has been submitted and has been distributed to Erie.
Okay.
Erie has not yet accepted its premise, nor given any basis for their analysis that they think it's too high.
When did they think theirs was supposed to be done?
They have not opined.
Oh, okay.
Counselor, is it fair to say the agreements as they exist and have been amended vary a little bit with regard to how the appraisals should be done and when they should be done? Stillwater being very specific, the Erie agreement less so.
Erie is very much less specific than the Stillwater agreement.
But we are bound by the public authorities law to ensure that we do receive fair market value, which in any event would necessitate an independent third-party appraisal.
How would that happen? Let's say they didn't want to renew it. and just said, hey, we're not gonna renew it, of going forward at the end of that, what would happen, you guys?
So if Erie Boulevard, FERC licensed entity, doesn't want to renew the operating agreement that permits their operation of the plant for which they have gained a license, we would probably notify FERC that they were not under agreement.
Yeah.
And FERC would probably pressure them to come to some sort of an agreement with the property owner, us, in order to move forward. In the interim, we would not be obligated to deliver the head that we impound at Conklinville on the timeliness, or with the timeliness factor that would allow Erie to maximize their revenue generated from the power they generate.
Okay, so they would still basically run the plant. We would not be obliged to empty the lake, and they wouldn't get the amount of electricity normally would get.
They get the same amount of electricity, they probably wouldn't get it at the time that they want it.
Yeah, we're still a co-licensee. The license prescribes, right? Mr. Chief Engineer releases given a certain date and certain elevation. So, I mean, I would add to Counsel's completely accurate answer that we're hoping it certainly doesn't come to that.
Yes.
Because we want this. This is a mutually beneficial relationship. It's enshrined in the FERC license, which runs out another 20 years.
20 years.
Counselor, or so. So we are working collaboratively toward what
Yes.
we both parties hope will be a good.
We have a great relationship, a great long-term relationship, and we want to continue that long-term relationship.
There's really no reason for them to dump that power.
No, of
Really?
course not.
There's no reason.
Right. And,
Good, thank you.
Yep.
I was worried about somebody dropping on us being stuck.
Yeah. We're hopeful that we'll come to a resolution. But in any case, the short answer is this resolution would extend by 6 months the current agreement and the current escalator in that agreement. Mr. Candido?
Any other questions of Mr. Leslie? If not, we'll take a motion to accept the resolution and approve the 6-month extension.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hayes?
Second,
Mr. DeWitt?
all in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. The second resolution, Mr. Leslie?
The second of these two amendment resolutions, the fourth that we're considering today at the committee meeting, would approve a fourth amendment to the ground lease and water usage agreement at Stillwater. Stillwater Associates operates the plant up at Stillwater. Their agreement was to expire June 30th of 2022. We are looking for a 3-month extension to September 30th of 2022. In this case, we have delivered our appraisal to Stillwater Associates. Stillwater Associates has yet to complete their analysis of that appraisal, nor have they delivered to us their appraisal. As the executive director indicated, this agreement is a little bit more prescriptive as to how the appraisals will be delivered and the time frame upon which the parties will choose, if necessary, a third appraiser to give an independent number if the two appraisals, our appraisal and their appraisal, are not close enough that we can reach some sort of an agreement. In this case, this 3-month extension will also continue the existing terms of that agreement, including the escalator in that agreement. Hopefully the 3 months is enough time for us to come together, get the final appraisals, and reach either a long-term extension of that agreement or gain a clear picture as to what we would need to purchase that plant for under the terms of the original 1985 agreement. At this point, we are far apart.
I hate to keep asking questions, but with power, with what they're considering for power this summer, potentially increases in cost for power and stuff, should we put something in there while we're negotiating with them, that if they don't want to sign into a contract for the next 3 months or 4 months, we get a higher number?
So Stillwater Associates has a purchase power agreement with National Grid. That purchase power agreement goes through December 31st of 2029 and pays Stillwater Associates a rate that is currently above market rate. We collect rent from Stillwater Associates for use of the land upon which they have built the plant that allows them to generate that power, through which they sell that power to NYMA.
So in other words, our rate is flat, their rate is variable based on the power.
Their rate is flat at a much elevated rate to what they would get on market right now. Our rate is basically flat. That's me. Talking out of both sides of my mouth, I guess. Our rate is flat. There is an escalator on that rate, an annual 3% increase.
So you got two devices.
So it's not a negotiating tool to be able to put anything in place to up that rate during that period of time?
No. Mr. Candio?
Any other questions of Mr. Leslie? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the resolution and approve the 3-month extension.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hayes?
Second,
I'll second that.
Mr. DeWitt?
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's passed. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leslie. If there's no other business to come before the governance committee, I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. DeWitt?
Second,
I'll second that.
Mr. Hayes?
all in favor?
We're out at 10:28.
Aye.
I'd now like to call on Mr. DeWitt and the Finance Committee.
I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. Roll call, Mr. Leslie.
Committee Chair Kenneth DeWitt?
Here.
Committee members Albert Hayes?
Here.
Timothy Reagan?
Here.
Board Chairman Mark Finkel?
Here.
Board Member Nicole Allen?
Here.
Executive Director John Callahan?
Here.
General Counsel Robert Leslie here. Chief Fiscal Officer Timothy Minicha?
Here.
Chief Engineer Robert Fultan?
Here.
Compliance Officer Stephanie Rizicki?
Here.
On the video feed, board members Richard Byrd?
Here.
Give it a second.
And Alfred J. Candido Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Leslie. Can I have a motion to adopt or revise the meeting agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Reagan?
I'll second that.
Mr. Hayes?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Can I have a motion to approve of May 10th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
I second it.
Mr. Hayes? Mr. Reagan?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Committee business, under new business, I have a resolution to authorize repayment by the Hudson River area of note payable to the Black River area. Mr. Minichia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have talked at some length in recent months about the rosier outlook for the regulating district's financial condition. This has not always been the case. Longer-serving board members and my colleagues who worked through a series of very significant challenges know well that adverse outcomes to litigation initiated by others place serious financial strain on the regulating district and on the Hudson River area more specifically more than 10 years ago. In response to those developments, the board authorized a loan of $3.045 million from the Black River area to the Hudson River area in 2011. In the years since that loan was made, the Hudson River area has made monthly debt service payments and a few lump sum payments to the Black River area, bringing the balance down to just under $1.7 million. Because of proposals made by the governor and enacted by the legislature, as well as other actions we have taken ourselves over the last few years, the regulating district finds itself with the opportunity to retire this debt more than 20 years ahead of schedule. 20 years. By taking this action, the board will enable the regulating district to finance the soon-to-be initiated rehabilitation project at Hawkinsville on a pay-as-you-go basis, resulting in debt service savings of approximately $2.8 million over the next 30 years. Thanks to the liquidity analysis we've undertaken with the assistance from 3+1, we do not believe this early repayment and pay-as-you-go financing will leave either the Black River area or the Hudson River area in a cash flow pinch. The resolution does ask for flexibility in terms of the precise timing of the repayment, as there is always some uncertainty about the flow of funds to and from both the Hudson River area and Black River area over the course of the first half of the regulating district's fiscal year. Let me pause and offer to answer any questions you may have about this resolution before asking for your approval.
If none, can I have a resolution to advance repayment by the Hudson River area of note payable to the Black River area?
I would gladly make that resolution.
Mr. Hayes?
I'll second it.
Mr. Reagan?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Resolution approved. Can I have a motion to advance to the full board recommend adoption of the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Black River area assessment? Mr. Minichia.
Make that motion. Oh, we just got to talk about it.
Never want to stand in the way of progress here, so. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Environmental Conservation Law, Title 21, Section 15-2123 and 15-2125 empowers the board to annually prepare a statement showing the name of each public corporation and the description of each parcel of real estate benefited by such reservoir and the amount of operation and maintenance charges to be borne by each as determined in the apportionment. The law also requires the assessment to remain fixed over the course of each of the regulating district's fiscal years during its 3-year budget period. So there's no change in the total amount assessed on beneficiaries in the Black River area and on beneficiaries in the Hudson River area for the upcoming fiscal year from the total amount assessed for the current fiscal year. In this first of four resolutions, we ask the board to approve the annual assessment for storage reservoirs for the Black River watershed for the second year of the budget period beginning July 1, 2021, in the amount of $1,141,728. 5 counties in the Black River area pay 7.18% of this amount, and hydroelectric producers cover the remaining 92.82%.
Any discussion? If not, can I have a motion?
I will make that motion.
Mr. Hayes?
I'll second.
Mr. Reagan?
A little gun shy now.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Can I have a motion to advance? Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Black River area state share? Mr. Minuccia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this second resolution, we ask the board to approve the state share for storage reservoirs for the Black River watershed, the second year of the budget period beginning July 1, 2021, in the total amount of $575,467. This amount is derived by subtracting the state share for storage reservoirs for the Hudson River area from the amount anticipated to be appropriated by the state in its state fiscal year 2023-2024 budget for the regulating district. The state has appropriated $1.25 million for the regulating district each year since 2016.
Discussion? Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Black River area New York State share?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I will second that.
Mr. Reagan, Mr. Hayes?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion advanced. Make motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Hudson River area assessment. Mr. Minuccia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this third resolution, we ask the board to approve the annual assessment for storage reservoirs for the Hudson River watershed for the second year of the budget period beginning July 1, 2021, in the amount of $3,113,850. This represents 77.82% of the costs approved by the board for fiscal year 2022-2023 after deducting non-assessment revenue. This percentage is based on the legal settlement with the Hudson River area downstream counties agreed to in 2013.
Any discussion? Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Hudson River area assessment?
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Hayes, Mr. Reagan?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Hudson River area New York State share? Mr. Minuccia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this fourth resolution, we ask the board to approve the state share for storage reservoirs for the Hudson River watershed, the second year of the budget period beginning July 1, 2021, in the amount of $674,533. This represents the remaining 22.18% approved by the board for fiscal year 2022-23 after deducting non-assessment revenue. This percentage was agreed to in the legal settlement with the Hudson River area downstream counties in 2013.
To the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Hudson River area New York State share.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I will second that.
Mr. Reagan, Mr. Hayes?
Discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion adopted. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Let's second that.
Mr. Reagan, Mr. Hayes.
All in
Not
favor?
sunshine out.
I got that one down.
We're out at 10:39.
Thank you, Chairman Dwight. I'd like to call to order the June monthly meeting of the Hudson River Black River Regulating District. Mr. Leslie, roll call.
Board Chair, Mark Finkel.
Here.
Second Vice Chair, Kenneth DeWitt.
Here.
Board Members Albert Hayes,
Here.
Timothy Reagan.
Here.
Nicole Allen.
Here.
Executive Director John Callahan.
Here.
General Counsel Robert Leslie here. Chief Engineer Robert Fulton.
Here.
Chief Fiscal Officer Timothy Minicha. Here. And Compliance Officer Stephanie Rizicki.
Here.
Video feed, Board Members Richard Byrd.
Here.
And
I'm
Alfred Candido.
Here.
All accounted for.
Thank you. I need a motion to revise the meeting agenda to take in the two resolutions to extend the contracts that we discussed. I need a motion to revise the meeting agenda.
Make that motion.
Ms. Allen?
I'll second.
Any
Mr.
further
DeWitt?
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Public comment period. Oh. Public comment period. I know we do have a presentation from somebody. We're gonna take that up just a little later in the meeting so that we can give full attention to it. Any other public comments other than that now?
I'd like to say something very quickly.
Sure. Please come in.
Yeah. My name is Kathy Stearns, and I have permit accesses on Muscle Harbor. And my concern is they're proposing an RV park, which is still not voted. It's been going through the Mayfield Town Planning Board. And I'm just wondering if anything came across any of your desks about approval for what they have proposed for the lake area. Like they proposed like a 60-foot boat split, just various other things. I'm just concerned about the implications to that area of the lake. Like it's very pristine right now. And there's going to be like, I think 277 RV sites, so has anything come, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that.
Sure. This is a project on Woods Hollow Road.
Yes.
Down in the town of Mayfield.
Yes.
The regulating district has received word from the town of Mayfield Planning Board asking us if we wanted to opine on their environmental quality review of the project. We've indicated that we do have permits that would be issued, but we have not yet received applications for those permits, and we would be pleased to let the town of Mayfield Planning Board act as the lead agency in that environmental review.
Okay.
So to this point, we are certainly aware of the project, but we do not have anything before us to opine on.
Okay. All right. Like I said, it's been ongoing for over a year, and it's going through several, like we had a couple of public hearings that the Mayfield Town Planning Board ran. But, like I said, my concern is that area of the lake because it's just, it's very pristine, and it's certainly going to change it, whatever the decision here is, So, okay. Would you post that when you are going to do anything on your agenda, for meetings?
In the event that we receive an application for a work permit to perform the work that they would need to do, they would have already needed to get a permit from DEC in order to install those docks.
Right.
We don't anticipate that they're going to include a boat ramp in their project proposal.
Right.
If they do, we'll certainly address it.
Okay.
But the balance of the project is beyond the scope of
Right, I understand.
our review.
Right. Supposedly it's supposed to be boat, like they're just allowing car top boats into that area. Like before it was going to be like a boat launch or whatever, and now they've changed that for like canoes, kayaks, I don't know, whatever can fit on top of a car. So, okay, well, thank you. I just wanted to know that there's other neighbors that are concerned as well. you know, so, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for coming. Any other public comments? Okay.
Anybody else on the video feed?
Yes, I would like to comment. I'm Carol Schock. I don't know if you can see me. I think my off, but here I am.
We'll ask the board administrator to restore your camera, restore your video feed as well while you speak.
Okay, very good. There I am. Okay.
Just go ahead.
So the reason I'm coming before you folks is regarding the Stillwater Reservoir and the water elevation in the Stillwater Reservoir. Those of you that have been on the board for a long time, this probably isn't a new concern, but we have a real issue up there because, as all of you know, the hamlet of Beaver River has no road access, and we're dependent upon the reservoir for access. And in some years, it's been very difficult because the small community, we have about 125 camps and cottages with 2 businesses, and they don't have access because the water levels are so low during their prime season. So last year was a wonderful year that we had water in the reservoir. It was perfect. But last year, I have a petition, if you will, or I should just say signatures. Petition sounds a little tough, but I have signatures of 300 people, which is really a lot when you consider the size of our community, of people that are expressing concern to keep the water level higher. Now, I'm sure the board is familiar with our dock situation at Beaver River on the reservoir. Is everybody, are you familiar with that? Is anybody?
Some members would be, staff is.
I'm covered with snow, I am, other than
Okay, so what is required for the people to go to their businesses to travel approximately? Put your boat in at Stillwater, travel 10 miles on the Stillwater Reservoir, and park at a dock, which has been a very, very long process of the funding for the docks, permission from the DEC, and the state and the town, and so on and so forth. Here's the problem in a nutshell. I won't just keep on time. We're finding we can no longer take boats to the dock. August, it's almost impossible. I mean, July, depending on the year. Sometimes July you can still use the dock, but in August the water's too low to access the docks. Then what the people have to do is park their boats, beach them on the closest accessible land. One of them being an island, but the island pops out of the ground so you can drive there. But legally, the DEC cannot permit that. That's not permissible. They kind of turn their head the other way, and they don't create big problems, but they can if they choose to. We're talking right now of, I think our docks normally have about 40 boats at them. So we're talking a lot of people, a lot of families, access to their property. So here's what I'm asking for. If I don't believe Mr. Fulton isn't at this meeting, is that correct? He's not.
He is present.
Okay,
Right here.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right. I know you've heard this from me before. That's why I decided to get the signatures so that you understand it's not just me expressing all this. In 2000, I won't go deep into all the elevations. I've looked at these charts and tried to figure out, but here's the easiest thing. Last year was a perfect year. Everybody was happy. We're not expecting to have high water, if you will, throughout the year. We understand what you people need. We understand the purpose of the reservoir. We get it. We're trying to be reasonable. But our season is very short, and to not be able to get to your property safely is crazy, which is another part too. With our docks, it's interesting. The state requires that our docks, which was on our own private nickel, to have it handicap accessible, and yet the rest of the year we don't even have a place other than just parking on the beach. So there's some real extremes here. However, if the water could stay high enough in the reservoir until the middle of August, then if you need to drain it like a bathtub, we're okay. We understand coming up on Labor Day, it's gone, it's over, it's okay. But if we could keep a level of like 1675 until middle of August, we're good. We're good. People that need to get to their camps after that, they can deal with it. Most people stop using their camps. Columbus Day weekend is the norm when people close down their camps. But it's a lot easier. I think that's the give and take on our community. We understand that you need to have a certain water level. We just need it during the prime part of the season, and the businesses need it. You know, and this includes the ability, for example, on the barge that you've permitted the barge use. You know, you have to have enough water to use the barge to get propane trucks in. You know, there's a lot to it. Also, the railroad now is starting to operate, and the DOT has promoted all these people coming up and getting off the train at the northern end and using kayaks. And I know this land very well. It would be a very long hike to the water if you can find water on the north end. So anyways, what I would like to do is ask if this is something that could be seriously considered. I will happily forward to you. I will mail you the 300 signatures. I got their names and their addresses, and they indicated on this petition whether they were a property owner, whether they're a visitor, or whether they're a businesses. All local businesses were in support of this. So basically, I don't know if there's a quick response to the 1675 mid-August or not.
Well, I think this is just a public comment, you know, Mr. Chairman, that the board can certainly reflect on, and in a future board meeting at Stillwater, and it's been a couple of years since we took that tour, that might help the board better appreciate these comments and context.
I agree.
That's
Thank you for your input. Thank you very much.
okay. What do I do with my, when do you expect a meeting in Stillwater? Do you know, or it's scheduled?
We will schedule one. We haven't yet, but I promise you in the near future we will.
Okay.
I can't hear you. You're breaking up.
So what do I do with my petition? Do I wait and present it at that time, or how do you want to handle this? I mean, there was a lot of work put into it.
We're aware of the petition. Our legal person tells us so. Yeah, I think we can go over when we go up there.
Okay, is there a place?
What, 2 years ago?
Leave my name and phone number? I'm sorry.
I've been here 3, and I haven't been there. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, just wait, if I could just say, is it possible for me to leave my name and phone number so I'm aware of when you're going to go to Stillwater, approach this? I mean, it's very important to our community, and we don't want to lose the 2022 season as well.
What I would, Mr. Chairman, if I may, on your behalf, what I would invite you to do is go to our website and send me, I'm the executive director, an email through the website with that information. That way you've got a record of it, and we know we get it clearly and accurately.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we'll definitely go up there in the very near future.
All right. Take a sunny day with a lot of water.
I like that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comment?
This is Dick
Okay,
Smith.
then I need approval of the May 10th. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
This is Dick Smith. I just had one question on the renewal of the power contract. I know that historically the conclusion of the negotiations has been delayed, as this is. And my question is, have we negotiated that the new contract, the new rate will be retroactive to the expiration of the original contract?
Negotiations are ongoing. That has not been an element of our negotiations to date.
So they're gonna go by the old rate then until they're forced into an agreement. It sounds like. Okay, thank you.
Want to speak just to the extension, Rob?
The extension does have the letter in it that we would have had in previous years. Other than that, as the executive director reminds me, we do not want to negotiate this agreement in public.
Okay, thank you.
This is not the forum.
There's something to consider,
Okay.
having it retroactive.
All right, very good. I'll ask again, any other public comment before we move on? Okay. I need approval of the May 10th, 22 regular board meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hayes,
Second.
Mr. DeWitt.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is, we have, an access permit appeal, from, Garcia's. If they would come forward, please.
Sure, and the CFO and I will move aside here temporarily just to provide everybody here a little.
Please come in. Welcome.
And you're, feel free to sit too if you're more comfortable.
Bring in a couple of chairs.
Okay, no, we're good.
Okay.
Have a seat or stand, whatever makes you more comfortable.
Hi.
Hello. You're welcome.
Thank you.
If the board chair would permit me, I would read a brief statement to get it right.
Let me just ask again, Counselor, that folks that are participating virtually, if you're not speaking, please do silence your devices.
Thank you. So this matter is brought to us by notice sent on March 10th, 2022. The board scheduled a hearing to hear the appeal, which is an appeal of staff's refusal to issue a work permit allowing the access permit holder to install crusher gravel from their access permit area northward to adjoin North Shore Road. Pursuant to a request from the access permit holder, Andrea Mulgrew Garcia, the hearing was adjourned to May 10th. A later request had that adjourned to June 14th. Further adjournment requests were denied. I would note that the administrative hearing will proceed with a statement from staff outlining its position following a statement from the appellant or the appellant's representative. Finally, the board may elect to hear any other interested person. The board chair will rule on the admissibility of evidence, but is not bound by the strict rules of evidence. The board may elect to render its decision from the bench or deliver a decision at a later date. Mr. Executive Director, would you like me to present the appeal?
I would. Thank you, Counselor.
So basically, the Executive Director's March 10th, 2022 memo to the board outlines the staff's position and includes the documents referenced. That memo is at page 41 of your board packet. Basically, the question before the board today is, should staff issue a work permit or should the gravel already placed be removed? As I indicated, the appeal comes to us under the rules promulgated by the board, set forth at 6 NYCRR Part 606. Those rules govern the use by permit holders of the state-owned property at Great Saguenay Lake. It gives the board wide latitude to issue or revoke access permits and to impose penalties for noncompliance with the foregoing rules. The two rules at issue in this case are 606-32C, which provides that the use of motor vehicles is prohibited except for access to the shoreline, and 606-46, which provides in part that permission to carry out a work project on any access permit or any permit access areas of the regulating district's property shall be requested on form supplied by the district at any district office, and no project shall be undertaken prior to approval by the board or approval authorized by the board. Basically, no motorized vehicles, and you need a work permit. The Mulgrew Garcias have a 20-foot wide access permit area. It is permit area 7293. It sits within tract 259, adjacent to 538 North Shore Road in the town of Edinburgh in Saratoga County. On May 21, Dan Kiskus, the senior field assistant then, now I believe he's been field supervisor, and Danielle Thorne, a field assistant, now the senior field assistant, working from the Sacandaga field office, observed that crusher stone had been placed on the access permit 7293 and adjacent access permit areas running parallel to the shoreline up to North Shore Road. They issued a stop work order on 5/20/21. On 5/22/21, the Garcias filed a work permit application, which was then denied by the then senior area administrator, John Hudson. He denied the permit application on 5/27, and at that same time determined that the unauthorized stone placed on the state land must be removed. In July of that year, July 14th of 21, Mr. Callahan took a photo confirming the placement of the stone and confirmed the decision that that stone must be removed. The Garcias appealed to the chief engineer, and in August 6th of 2021, the chief engineer confirmed that a permit is required for the installation of gravel on the permittee's access permit, and noted that the rules and regulations do not provide an opportunity for a permittee to effect a change in the permit area of other permit holders. In October 15th, Ms. Garcia appealed the chief engineer's determination to the executive director, and in a January 3rd, 2022 letter, the executive director confirmed, indicating that no permit had been issued, no approvals had been obtained from APA or DEC, the shared use was not authorized, motor vehicles are prohibited, the access permit road, or the access road, is inconsistent with the rules of the regulating district. Here, the placement of stone improved the pathway, an unauthorized pathway traversing several access permit areas, rather than providing access to the shoreline. A work permit would have been required for the placement of gravel on each and every access permit area affected, and as none of the adjacent access permit areas have secured necessary approval, it really isn't relevant whether some of those access permit holders generally approve of the access or of the effort undertaken to place gravel there. Basically, the staff observed the access road having been improved. The access road initially was unauthorized, and they're asking that the gravel that was placed be removed from that roadway. While you will hear from Ms. Garcia that certain number of adjacent access permit holders are interested in the improved roadway and happy about it, staff have different opinion. They have experience in other spots around the lake where improved roadways have caused difficulties. The rules in place and staff's previous interpretation of those rules would mandate removal. Basically, we're just looking for the stone to be taken out. If they want to remediate the area by placement of a thin layer of topsoil and grass, we are not opposed to that. Anything else you'd like to add to the?
Counselor, I'll just say I had the pleasure of speaking with Ms. Garcia multiple times over the last year or so about this process, about each step, her right to appeal, first to the chief engineer, then to me, and then ultimately the right to come here and speak to the board today. Certainly understand the dynamic here, understand the factors that are at play for her and some of her neighbors, but as I think as esteemed counsel has already reported, the facts for us and relative to regulation, law, and board policy are pretty clear, bringing us here today. So I want to thank you for the dialogue and the conversation leading up to this. It really has been a pleasure, and I think just give you the floor.
Okay.
Counselor, is that?
Yep.
There was an email, and one of the reasons why we continued to pursue this was on June 10th. From Mr. Hudson that said he would extend the deadline until July 12th. Approval for the work permit cannot be given until we know which permit holders agree to the gravel. The other issue is knowing where the boundary lines for the gravel for the permit holders areas that do not want the gravel. This could require a boundary line survey line. So that encouraged us to move forward and to secure the other permit holders that were in agreement to it. And out of 21, we secured 18 signatures. It has been the only access. This is my 50th year up here growing up, and several others, my neighbor, Ron Fry. It has been the only access we've had to our camp from the time that my parents purchased it. So whenever there was a 911 call, my father, my mother, the only way they came down that road. And it may not be determined as a road, but it's been the only access for emergency vehicles as well. It has become in such disrepair because of the erosion that to fill it in and stop it and to maintain it was what our purpose was to do that, or that's what we would have liked to have done. The two permit holders that are not in favor of it have voiced either concern of speeding, and or the
Voice concern for what was the first?
speeding, or that the crusher run would cause cancer from the dump. I did a little bit of research on that, and they probably wouldn't be living around here because there's a lot of crusher runs, especially in your own driveway. But that's not concern. The concern is really just to maintain the access to the shoreline and to our home. As I said, 18 out of 21 were in favor for it, and also would be willing to come and put in their own work permit request. But based on Mr. Hodgson, we went ahead and secured the signatures of everyone that was in favor.
Can I ask a couple questions? So you didn't have a permit, and you knew you weren't supposed to put the gravel down? I just want to understand that. Yes. That's true.
And something that was the carts that was put before the horse. We had just rebuilt the house. It had been dug out by some other contractors that had gone in to pull out some trees beyond us. It was also a conversation that was going on, and I think it was just one of those spur moments. Like I said, I wasn't here, and then immediately when I realized that I did need a permit, I filed for one.
But
like
the gravel came in after you knew you needed a permit. That's what I was trying to get to.
No, it came in before, but it was stopped.
You didn't realize you needed a permit.
I did, something. It was a community conversation that was going on for years. And I really didn't spend as much time up here. My concern was also my mom, she's 98. She walks out of the house, she goes down the uneven surface, and God bless her, she's 98 and still can get on the floor and do stretches in the morning. So she's an active 98-year-old. When she walks down to visit the neighbors, she's walking on all of this uneven surface. You come down, there's blacktop for what, 10 or 15 feet, Ron?
25.
Okay. As you come off of North Shore Road, which is a very short turn to come down to the access area, it is the dirt has worn out so badly that there's probably a 5 or a 6 inch drop now when you come off of that.
And what was the original? Does anybody know what the original, was there a road there originally? I mean, what was when the whole thing was established and these camps and stuff were built or put up there? Anybody have any background of what was there prior or?
Yes,
How?
I've been there 70 years. That road was never built. You call it a pathway, a roadway, whatever. It just occurred over time, just from all the vehicles going through there. We're talking 24 families, that use that all the time. And that's where it came from. And the erosion is, you can see it in your picture. The erosion is still happening. You see on your picture up the way, you see the dirt coming across. It was every year. Not every year did it reach there, but enough there. Wearing away, and the rain, just
over all those years, you must have had some erosion and stuff before. Did you just take a York rake prior to that and just, clean up the road that way, you guys, or how did you?
We tried. The folks that are opposed to the pressure run are also opposed to any type of repair on that pathway entranceway.
But our guidelines would be the York rake would be acceptable, right? To fix the road, it's the crusher rod coming in. That's not, I guess, is that right?
The York rake would be something that they could apply for a permit to do on their own access permit.
Yeah, and Counselor, if I can say, in cases where a road has been established within a single permit area, we have allowed fill above the mean high water within a distinct permit area.
Yes.
And that's something we would consider as well. I think the issue here is this was across multiple permit areas, and the board has not established any sort of, as this gentleman said, it's a use that sort of evolved over the years.
Evolved over time, never been authorized by the district.
It never, I might say, why would we have tried to authorize it? We didn't build it. It just occurred naturally, just from traffic going over.
But the change was when you put rock down. And I'm guessing, because I haven't heard all this, from day one, but it sounds like a couple people that you put rock down in front of their places don't want the rock.
Right. There's two permit holders.
Yeah.
The one who's complaining about the cancer, and the one who's complaining about speeding. To me, the easiest way to solve this would be to allow the stone for the permit holders who want it. The ones who don't want it, I'll personally remove it for them. Make sure they're 10 feet when they have to walk across the stone. It also serves like speed bumps. So there's nobody going to speed there. We're only talking 200 feet of road anyway. If people exceed 2 miles an hour, going one into the other, that's a lot.
Basically, the way you come down and turn, you couldn't speed. It's too much of a sharp loop to speed down there.
Who are the two permit holders that don't want it?
Leonard and Rosneski. And there are two Rosneskis. That one stays neutral based on family. Anthony Rosneski and Louis Rosneski are brothers, so as not to cause any static. Anthony Rosneski, who also has Ford and Mirably, they stay neutral as not to cause any arguments, and I completely understand that. My brother is married to two stars, and we're still very close, but I understand why he's opting to just not sign and stay neutral.
Counselor, maybe relevant to Mr. DeWitt's question, and I'm a rookie here, this is my first appeals hearing, so do we check to see if anybody else here virtually or in person that wants to be heard on this subject?
If Ms. Garcia is done with the presentation, then yes, the board chair could entertain anybody else who might have an interest in
Not aware of
speaking to it.
anybody, but I didn't know if that was part of the itinerary.
It is.
The picture you all have in your folder. I have 40-foot permits there. That's out of the end of my 40-foot permit. You can show all of it. The picnic table, the red picnic table, that's on my 60 foot. She has 60 foot. So that's 60 foot out of close to 200 that we're talking about.
Which picture you got? The color?
Your colored one shows it better than what we see on this.
Yeah.
She's got a color one in there.
Black and white photos in here don't really depict the standing water. It's actually, there's water when you come down, it's mud, it's turned into mud. It's standing water, it's mosquitoes, it's.
We totally understand that an improved road would be better than an unimproved road.
And we're talking.
The issue for us is the road is not authorized, nor do the rules put together by the board authorize the road.
Oh.
It is not something that you could put on state land in other parts of the state, and our rules do not permit it to be done on the state land here.
But there are, you drive around this lake and you'll find gravel roads in a number of places, access roads that are on permitted areas. You see, you take your boat up and down the lake, you'll see retaining walls that aren't supposed to be there. I mean.
And you drive down the thruway and the trooper pulls you over and says you are going 70 miles an hour in a 65 mile an hour zone. Your argument cannot be, but see all the other people going by also violating the rules. We cannot permit that which is not permitted in the rules.
But I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't answer that. But we're talking the ingredients, the desires, and the needs of a couple dozen families. Families.
I would just note, and I think if you put it that way, it's in pretty stark reveal, a couple dozen to, that's not the analysis we're making. We're just looking at the current use relevant to the rules and the board policy and the laws that are prescriptive relative to the use of state land, especially within the park. And kind of, the conversation we've had is almost, I won't say apologetic, but certainly empathetic to what's going on. But when you look at the facts, there's no other determination for me to make. And I would suggest, to the board, probably not any other determination for the board to make, but that's certainly within the board's purview.
My concern in these issues is always the precedent.
Yeah.
We know we have rules, and I've always maintained that we just have to be even-handed when we apply them. And I understand completely. We got a vehicle stuck in our land from wet last year trying to pull our dock out, and I wish I had access from down there. But we will, we'll discuss this. The board want to take this up now, or how do we want to do this?
So can I emphasize another point? Andrea alluded to the vehicles coming down. Her family alone has had 3 occasions where ambulances had to go down. I don't know if the other families had the same thing, but it's also a safety issue.
And I wouldn't really call it, I've said a road. It's really the only passage that we have to get to our home. So a pathway, a roadway, defining it as one specific way, it's the only access to have. Yes.
Which doesn't
and
their rules, period.
And I understand what you...
Legally, it's not the only access you have. It's the most expedient access you have. From a legal standpoint, you have access off the state highway.
How?
Whether,
Where do you park? And only because from the
All
time
I'm
that we
saying
bought
is-
this, that's the only place that we've ever entered.
I totally get it, but, you know, if
I would actually have to park on the road.
yes, you'd have to be on the right of way of the highway, that would be a different issue. We get that.
And it's
But
to my shoreline. What is the access then that I would have to my shoreline?
You don't own any of the shoreline.
No, I understood, but it said access to the shoreline, right? So the
Yes.
permit holders to have access to your
So the
shoreline?
rules and regs do allow motorized use solely for access to the shoreline within your own permit area.
Right.
Correct. So if, again, even without a road, a permittee can, as Mark did when he got his vehicle stuck, back down across state land, come in and out, but that's typically what you see there is somebody with a side-by-side going down to their permit area. Otherwise, non-motorized use of state land, non-motorized, only non-motorized, other than that, vehicles on state land are authorized. I should say, not motorized vehicles are otherwise not authorized on state land.
Because again, I'm not an attorney, but does precedent have anything? We're talking 50, 60 years of usage already. Is that over?
Usage, it's the deposition of the gravel
Has been there.
without a work permit.
And that's the only issue before the board today, right, Counselor? Our determination that the gravel must be removed.
Right.
Not, the usage, the overall question of usage is not before
It's
the
not
board.
before the board.
So you don't care about the erosion and the safety issues and what have you? It's just strictly the laws where you guys are concerned.
We're not going to allow you to put words in our mouth. The only issue at this point for us
in my opinion.
is a disposition of gravel without a permit.
If everyone were to file a permit, would it be denied? Or would it actually go before the board for review and evaluation? And you mentioned early on about putting in topsoil. That was mentioned from what I've come to find out. Again, I didn't spend a lot of time up here prior to redoing it.
Counselor, you mind if I take that? Yeah, I think we're once the gravel is, if the board upholds our previous determination, once the gravel is removed, we're happy to work with you and your neighbors about a treatment that would be, before you actually submit a work permit, we'll go out, we'll meet on site, we'll talk about, we'll brainstorm, which is what we try to do with everybody. To your comments, sir, of course we care. You know, we are bound by, we have specific authorization law. The board has promulgated certain policies and regulations, and those regulations need to, if they're going to be changed, need to go through a state rulemaking process, and that hasn't happened. And I doubt they would be changed, frankly, given the restrictions on the use of state land, especially within the park. But when we get to that point, and go back to what I was saying, happy to meet you on site. Let's talk about what might be possible under the rules. We'd be happy to work with you, obviously. Fair enough, Councilor?
Yep.
Could we have that meeting? You think that will?
I don't think so. That would not be my recommendation to the board.
You got quite a
There's
bit of
somebody
tonnage
else?
down there.
Pardon?
How much ton have you got in there?
It looks, that picture looks far more than what it is. That is a very concise photograph. I sent
Just
in
goes
some,
all the way around.
that were in color, but they were only printed in black and white. This one was printed.
These are the permit areas we're talking about. There's 18 permits in that area.
Yeah.
That's mine and my sister's right there.
How many truckloads of fill did you bring in there?
I didn't, Kurt saying.
Here's what it looks like. That was just the other day. So it's not nearly what it looks like as far as it being, this looks like it's very, very heavy.
Would it be all right for me to pass that around to the other board?
Sure.
So basically,
Screen might go out.
Do you recall how many?
You got the whole thing. It's pretty
Well,
spotty.
Reagan had asked.
It stopped, I think, the first one going in. I could find out.
It kind of looks like more than one truckload. That's all
It's only 10 feet wide. It's not, it looks like it's 20.
No, we have a road too that we have to upkeep, which is part of
Did
the
you want to take
thing.
a look at it?
Yeah, I saw it. And, it's same type of issue.
More details. So that actually looks far more because it's a very narrow screenshot rather than a wide screenshot. But the puddles just keep getting worse and worse. And also what's happening is that as people drive down, they go up to the right to park. So all of that land is also deteriorating and wearing away.
Anybody else want to opine?
I have a question.
Anybody?
If I may.
Yeah.
Because I can't see any of the diagrams or photographs, so I'm trying to visualize. So are all of these properties landlocked? So there's no way to get to them?
All these properties are, they're on North Shore Road. I suspect there is a significant drop from North Shore Road down to the actual camps.
About 10 to 15 feet.
So are they landlocked? No. Is it easy access? No. The easiest access is through the pathway that each of these permit holders has utilized over the last 70 years.
Realistically, there is no other access other than that
But-
one strip that
but
goes down and
But each
legally,
property,
there is other access.
but each property fronts a road, whether it's a town or a state road. That's their front. They have frontage. That whatever it is, 90 feet, 50 feet, they have frontage, and then the lots go down to the shore, which would be whatever. How many feet, Executive Director, from the watermark today to where the permit line would be?
Well, just to clarify, the lots go down to the state boundary, the boundary of the state property line,
Right.
and maybe it's a couple hundred feet, I guess, maybe a couple hundred feet.
And also consider, even though there's a road that fronts all these permits, you can't park there because that's only 10-foot permit. You can't park a 20-foot vehicle there, and especially 24 of them.
So my question would be, I get it because nature allowed a clearing and people drive by their camps on the road, and then at some point go into this natural path and then go parallel to the shoreline. So they're it's almost like Main Street, the informal Main Street, the front of these 21 camps would be this pathway.
Yes.
So how much? Why didn't you build this road on your own land? My question is.
I should clarify, there's only about 3 or 4 camps across the road from these permits. Most of these permits are up on the side of the mountain. There's camps up there and what have you. The bulk of them.
So the actual number of residences
That use it.
4 or 5?
The first 2 on that line have a pad at the top, which when they purchased theirs, that was already there. The next 3, Luther, mine, and Fry's, face the water. So the entryway of our camp has always been from the water.
Is that helpful, Mr. Candido?
Yes, thank you.
The other permit holders are all up the top.
Mr. Candido, the photos that we're describing are on the Regulating District's website, the board packet on the website. About 45 pages in on that PDF.
No, I couldn't find them. So.
You find the colored one shows it.
It actually doesn't.
58.
It shows it the best, but it doesn't show it in its entirety. All it's showing is that short.
It doesn't show what you're showing.
It doesn't show a screenshot. It shows a very limited angle.
Are there any other people either in the room or remotely that would like to opine on this issue?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Okay. My name is Nadine Leonard. Okay, great. And I have been quietly listening to individuals speak and describe what the formation is down by the water side. As the board has stated, in their own rules and regulations, there is no roadways that were acceptable for that designated area. The traffic has increased. I've been coming up here for 50 years, by at least 20-fold. It is not only being used for permit holders to access their beach permit areas for the water, as was originally the case for folks up here to enjoy this beautiful lake. The amount of commercial traffic and commercial vehicles is endless. People have work done and do not hesitate to have unlimited number of work vehicles crossing right through our beach, to the point where my parents have almost been struck by vehicles when they stand there and say, slow down, hey, you can't cross me, hey, do you get proper paperwork for a permit? They're nearly run down. And this has happened on multiple occasions. Or they simply drive up on the grassy area and go around them and flip them off. This is not being used as to what it was originally intended for. And I now have 5 grandchildren, and I'm fearful for their safety trying to get them to the beach. Now, I understand that it's inconvenient. I do understand that the surface down there is uneven. However, not to the extent that isn't typical around the entire 29 miles of this lake. Erosion is a natural occurring process. The rain, when it comes down in torrents, does create puddles that within 24 hours are evaporative. And lastly, as far as there being access for Ms. Garcia and Mr. Fry's property, they both did construct new premises down there that at the time of their construction, why was it not a thought, gee, how do we get access from the road to our properties? That could have been done and still can be done. It does not have to be through my beach permit area. Hello?
Thank you. Any others? Thank you very much. Anybody else? Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Anybody on the board? Any questions? Anything? Well, that leaves us. What do we want to do? It'd be nice if we resolve this today. I like the idea that you're willing to work with her to get a solution to it. I don't know, is this anything we vote on? Is this a vote issue?
You have heard all of the evidence that is likely to be presented. It's up to you whether you want to keep this open and hear other evidence or close the hearing. Once you've closed the hearing, you can make a decision. You can reserve your decision until the next meeting, the next noticed meeting, at which you could discuss it and then make a decision. It's up to you.
Well, how do you guys feel?
I'd like to, I wouldn't want to close it today, because I think we need to go to the policy and stuff. So just so where I'm at. But I understand the issues. And so I really think we ought to maybe talk about it a little bit and just have some discussion on it and stuff. I understand the policy, and if we start breaking policies without changing them, where do you stop? And I don't think any of us want anything like that. We don't want that. But I mean, I understand from both sides. I understand if you put stone down in front of my property, I'd be madder now. I mean, I'm just telling you without asking me, I would not have been happy. So, and I had property on the lake, so I know these types of things.
Right, and to your point, it wasn't in front of anyone's property, it was on.
Understand.
So I would never go into someone's driveway.
Yeah, I understand, but
I
in
understand.
reality, I'm looking at that 10 foot, and that little sign says I have something I own something there.
Right.
I don't own it.
Or at least
I want to use.
right.
I don't want to use bad words here.
So I'm hearing that we want to close the hearing for now and bring it up at the next meeting. Is that what I'm hearing? Or not? I didn't mean to put words in anybody's mouth. But I thought that's what he
I
was
think
saying.
several years ago, we had somebody in Mayfield, put a jetty out with crushed stone, and we had them remove it.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't permissible. And then a couple of years ago, someone, down put decks out on, land, like 20 by 30 or something like that, and then he just stacked them up on top of each other.
Small
We had
aircraft
him
carrier.
remove it. You know, like, I hate to say that, but, you know, it's not.
Well, I can understand those
Precedent is
jetties
one.
and,
Yeah.
you know.
So basically, all it was get this stone removed, and if they want to put soil or something down, that would be accessible, right?
Yeah.
Because this is what we're here for.
And-
So basically, probably the best thing is to do is just get the stone removed and
work with
go from there.
I work with them on,
Executive director.
executive director on it, that would,
Soil.
but I was trying to answer yours.
So we would go along and request everyone to put in a work
That's what you're
permit
for.
to, because I know that was attempted some time back, and that was.
We've got 7 members, you need permit votes to go one way or the other.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
I'd personally be inclined to close the hearing. I think we've heard enough evidence. But I would be open to further discussion if the board wanted to, as I'm less familiar with some of the policy that has been done in the past.
I'd like to clarify one point that you made about that if the stone was in front of your property. Mine is the only property that.
Okay, so we have a couple of different, options here on the table. Somebody make a motion to either close, well, first of all, should we close the hearing? Is there any more evidence?
I'll make a motion to close it.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we want to reopen? Do we want some further discussion at the next meeting? So you can do some research. I have it from 2 board members. That sound, we don't need a motion for that, do we?
No, you don't. If you want to table it to the next meeting, you can do that, to the chair.
Well,
Do
that's
you
what
want
I'm
to
hearing,
call
that's
for
what
a
I'm
vote?
hearing from my board.
Yeah, I think we ought to talk about it, but not out in public.
Well, I think you have to talk about it in public if you're going to talk about it.
Yes.
There's.
But you can do some research between now and the next board meeting.
Right. Their open meetings law dictates that matters be discussed in public. And this is not one of those that warrant an exception to the open meetings law.
Gotcha.
Still the same, okay. Then we will bring it up at the next board meeting. It's time to do the research you want to do.
Okay. So it's tabled to the next board meeting.
Thank you very much.
Waiting to remove it from next board meeting, or?
So that you don't have a ruling yet from the board, we'll reach out to you later today and talk about the process.
Very good.
Fair enough.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So can I ask a question? I can ask a question.
No.
Okay, so just a question on that to you guys. If the issue is the road and the condition of the road, and they put this stone down, can they put topsoil up over the top of the stone and receive it?
No, don't go there.
It's not allowed. I mean, what would you do? Put fabric underneath that then, or nothing?
Nothing.
So the issue is you can't do anything.
If you remove as much of the stone as you possibly can remove, and put topsoil over the balance and seed it, you're gonna end up with a road anyway.
So the reality is, there's really nothing more you can do to that road, other than York rake it.
Basically, all it is a pathway.
Right.
That's all it is. It's not really a road.
That's what I didn't, that's what I wanted to talk about, to just understand.
I'm not sure that we could even authorize the York raking with the intent of creating the road.
We're just smoothing out.
Get rid of the stuff.
Get rid of the stone. We're not opining on the
Motorized vehicle.
continued use of the road.
Yeah.
So they'd have to use horses with the York rake.
Well,
Report of the executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In recognition of our robust agenda, I'll simply note my report appears on page 72, 73. But before pausing for any questions the board members have, I'll just note, since I saw Mr. Rosenthal on the screen at the beginning of the meeting, and I know this was a project near and dear to his heart, that we have gone back and forth working with the Great Sacandaga Lake Advisory Council, with publishers of the waterproof charts for the reservoir. We've made some edits, and our hope is that printing will begin on those later this week, and that's a service that the board has expressed support for in the past, getting those out to the voting public for free, sponsored by the GSLAC. So I thank Mr. Rosenthal, who still stays in touch with me on this issue, for his leadership on it, and we're making progress. So with that, pause for any questions the board may have, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you, sir. Contract actions. Resolution to approve the 7th Amendment of Contract C012012 with Kleinschmidt Associates.
Mr. Chairman, my memorandum is on page 74. In December 21, the district received comments on the Hawkinsville Reconstruction permit application from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. In response, the district requested that Kleinschmidt Associates provide additional permitting services related to the Hawkinsville Dam remediation project, including review of the DEC comments, perform analysis to support a response, attend a meeting with the DEC Dam Safety, and update and resubmit the design report and project drawings, which were part of the original application, to the district and then to Dam Safety. The district required Kleinschmidt's immediate assistance to DEC Dam Safety in order to stay on schedule for an August 2022 start of construction. And as such, Kleinschmidt completed the additional scope of work in March of this year. Kleinschmidt has provided additional services which are not included in the contract scope of work and fee, as amendment number 7, review of DEC comments, scope of services letter dated March 31st, 2022, which is attached to my memo. And it includes additional scope of work and additional fee necessary to respond to the December 2021 DEC comments. They completed the services as stated in their services letter for a fee of $16,400. Staff recommends acceptance of Kleinschmidt's proposal, Amendment 7 review of DEC comments proposal, and seeks board authorization to amend contract C01-2012 to include the Amendment 7 review of DEC comments, scope of work, and fee, and seeks authorization for the executive director to execute an amendment to increase the contract price by $16,400 to a total contract price of $239,964. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do I have any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the amended contract.
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Allen?
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. DeWitt?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, resolution to award the Hawkinsville Dam material and quality control testing work to CMF Associates. Again, Mr. President.
Thank you. My memo is on page 80. This is support of the Hawkinsville remediation project anticipated to start August of this year. The district needs to hire a material testing quality control service company to inspect and confirm compliance of materials that are placed by the contractor in the field, both concrete and earthen materials. A solicitation of proposals was made of about four state certified MWBE firms, and 2 firms indicated that they would not provide the services required. 2 received the request for proposal, and out of that, 1 declined to submit and CME Associates did submit a proposal, which is attached to my memo. And we have reviewed for compliance with the request for proposal, CME's documents, and found that the proposal was acceptable, fair, and reasonable, and find that the respondent is qualified to perform the work required and has the experience necessary to responsibly and reliably complete the work. The district staff recommends conditionally awarding the material and quality control testing contract D02-2022 to CME Associates and seeks board acceptance of the recommendation and authorization to form a contract to complete the work and authorization for the executive director to execute an agreement in the amount not to exceed $29,908.94.
When would that be included as part of the project?
There are requirements for the contractor to confirm their the materials that they bring in on site.
Then we're confirming
comply.
with the contractor.
We're confirming that the contractor is in compliance with the requirements that are established in the contract document.
Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion to accept the contract.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Reagan? Second. Mr. DeWitt?
Any further discussion? That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Discussion regarding the reservoir operating agreement, Mr. Or is that covered in?
Yeah, you're right. Again, my governance.
Do that under governance, Counselor?
Do that under the governance
Okay,
committee.
then we will go right to committee reports. Governance committee first, resolution to award the regulating district's insurance program for policy year July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Mr. Manisha.
Happy to answer any questions anybody has, since we discussed this in governance.
Motion to accept the contract?
I make that motion.
Mr. Hayes?
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution to approve the insurance proposal for policy year July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Again, Mr. Manisha.
Happy to answer any questions that may have arisen since the governance committee took this up.
We have, do we have a, have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Mr. DeWitt? Ms.
Okay,
Allen?
no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, the operating agreement extensions, Mr. Leslie.
Similarly, I'll answer any questions that may have arisen since the governance committee. The first resolution is the third amendment to the Reservoir operating agreement of Conklinville, be a 6-month extension.
Any further discussion? If not, a motion to extend the contract for 6 months?
I'll make that motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Ms. Allen, Mr. Candido?
There we go.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, a motion to extend the operating agreement for 3 months at Stillwater.
Likewise, any questions that have arisen since the governance committee? Ready?
Okay, a motion to extend that contract.
I will.
Make that
I'll make
motion.
that motion.
Second?
Ms. Allen, Mr. Candido, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Finance Committee, Mr. DeWitt.
Resolution to authorize repayment by the Hudson River area of notes payable to the Black River area. And we've gone over this in the Finance Committee, so we won't, unless anybody has any other discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Reagan?
Second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Hayes?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can I have a resolution to approve the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Black River Area Assessment. And we've gone through that in our Finance Committee. And can I have a motion?
We have a motion?
I heard Mr. Byrd.
I think that was Mr. Byrd.
Second?
I'll second it. Mr. Byrd, Mr. Reagan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Can I have a resolution to approve the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Black River Area, New York State Share? And we've heard that from Mr. Minuccia in the Finance Committee. So can I have a resolution?
I'll make that. Mr. Reagan,
I'll second it.
Ms. Allen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Can I have a resolution to approve the July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Hudson River Area Assessment? And we've heard that through our Finance Committee meeting. So can I have a resolution?
We have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hayes,
Second?
Mr. Reagan.
Discussion. Everybody approved?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is approved. Can I have a resolution to approve the July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 Hudson River Area New York State Share? And we've heard Mr. Minuccia on that in the Finance Committee. So can I just have a resolution on that?
The motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Allen, Mr. Hayes.
Discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go to our General Counsel report, Mr. Leslie.
My report is at 103. I'll answer any questions. I would note that the Ethics Reform Act of 2022 now requires ethics training for all staff. So all of us in the room who've already done it get to ensure that everybody else in the district does it.
Okay, any questions, discussions, or, very good, thank you. Compliance Officer, Mr. Zicki.
Thank you. My report can be found on page 104. During the reporting period, I performed the Hudson River and Black River area compliance audits. Proper procedures are in place and all accounts were reconciled. We've hired 4 seasonal laborers for the Sacandaga field office. Third employee started today, and our 4th one will be starting early July. Our operations and maintenance staff are very pleased to have the additional help. I am pleased to inform you that we received our MWBE program report card for fiscal year 2022 or 21-22, quarters 1 and 2, and we achieved an A+ for both quarters. Finally, on pages 105 through 107, you will find the contract status sheets. They are there for your review and satisfy the public authority law requirements. If you have any questions, if not, that completes my report.
Any questions?
No questions.
If not, we will move on to the Chief Fiscal Officer, Mr. Minuccia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can find the CFO report on page 108 of your packet. Happy to report that the regulating district's combined bank and investment balance is $6,699,119. $209,694, or 3.2% more than the same period last year. Also happy to report that the sum of personal service, employee benefits, and taxes representing the least seasonal of regulating district expenses are earning approximately $125,900, or 2.1% more than they were during the same period last year. Having released more than my fair share of carbon dioxide this morning, I'll pause and just happily answer any questions that any of you have about the regulated district's finances.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much, sir. Chief Engineer, Mr. Holder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report begins on page 131. I'm going to summarize the precip and inflow as concisely as possible. Just turn your attention to the 5 graphs, each representing our reservoirs, and you'll see that we were, if not exactly, very close to meeting historic average on or about the end of May, June 1st date across all the 5 reservoirs. And maybe it's appropriate to turn your attention to specifically Stillwater's graph.
I was going to say, I better take care of that.
You'll see that the dotted red line, which is labeled operating elevation, several years, if not a decade ago, we incorporated at least, in terms of the target, a higher elevation during, well, it's represented here at the end of August through September, but not dissimilar from the request that has been made today, but at that time, a request that was made a decade ago. But, the bottom line with achieving that is whether or not we have the excess inflow. The historic average elevation of the reservoir, which is the solid blue line on that graph, comes from and as a result of what we typically get for inflow and what we typically need to release to maintain the Black River, minimum flow in the Black River, specifically around August when it can get quite dry in the Black River. And the release out of Stillwater Reservoir represents, in some cases, 30% of the flow in the Black River at Watertown. So, it's a balance, trying not to release too much water and doing our best to accommodate some of the upstream folks as we can, but obviously recognizing that our statutory obligation is downstream, and that the reservoir is there to meet those flow requirements. So we are certainly cognizant of Beaver River Station's needs in terms of reservoir elevation, and we try to work that in if we can. And the only other thing I will note is that historic average elevation in the middle of August is 1674, and I think Ms. Schock was talking about 1675.
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
I thought there was a road that they could get there in the summer on, up there, and I got that wrong.
There's a lot of history. There's Beaver River Station.
There's a railroad.
There was a railroad at one time.
But the side of the road, I thought.
There was a road that accessed that point upstream on the Beaver River, long before the reservoir was created. And right now, as she mentioned, their primary means of transportation is over a barge that leads.
So you can't come up that road in the summer.
There is no road access.
You can't come up that thing that.
There's what's referred to, I think, is 6 Mile Road.
Yes.
But it's across the reservoir and can be accessed by a boat, and there are vehicles that they use, and they drive them down to that point, and sometimes.
But you need a boat to get to the road.
Or you can put, yes, you do. I mean, there are.
Oh, yeah. Snowmobiles a lot.
Otherwise they do use the barge that's available. That's a service that someone provides to those folks.
Nobody there has registered their vehicle. There's no license plate.
I know.
I certainly, and again, as evidenced by the graph and the target elevation, we do our best to maintain some elevations during not just for access, but there are wells that we're aware of that folks have that draw off of the Stillwater Reservoir, and certain times that reservoir can be a little bit low for those wells to be productive for those homes. And, so we do our best, but oftentimes it's completely dependent on the inflow. And keeping in mind that we have to meet statutory obligations with regard to release.
Well, on the Great Second Lake last weekend, I was debating whether I should push my dock out because there was about an inch of water. I said, no, it's gonna rain this week, and it went up 2 inches, and I'd be walking through water if I. You're hitting the mark.
Good. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just wish you could get this water right.
Yeah. It's always wrong, from some perspective.
For somebody, it's always wrong.
Any other board member questions or comments?
Mr. Rosenthal reached out to me via email asking if it was appropriate for him to comment on the appeal that we just heard. I don't know if you want to reach out to him,
Sure.
see if he wants to comment.
Sure.
Do you want to do that now during the meeting? And if he's, then if our board administrator, if he's still on the line, could bring him up on camera, Mr. Rosenthal? Megan, if that's something you can do?
Jeff?
Mr. Rosenthal, can you hear us if you're still on?
You must have gotten up.
There's 6 people on.
Let's take a look.
Mr. Rosenthal left the meeting right after the appeal.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Megan.
Okay, in that case, I'll move to resolution for our next board meeting, July 12th in Boonville, tentatively. We have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Hayes, Mr. DeWitt.
All in favor?
Aye.
A motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Mr. Hagan, Mr. DeWitt.
Thank you.
We are out.
Well, it's funny because
Pause
I
for-
said that, are we off camera?
We just want to pause. If you gavel out, Mr. Chairman, that'll be our board administrator's signal to end the recording.